Have you guys ever had that experience where you listen to an artist like on the radio or something and you sing along and you're just like, dang, I sound just like them? And maybe it's just like a delusion or something, but I've had that with Carrie Underwood. Seriously. Jesus Take the Wheel. I was like, oh my God, this is how I sing. But anyway, that song is meaningful for me because I felt like my life definitely went that route. I would say that I didn't even like really know Jesus at all for most of my life. I really didn't because I grew up like I grew up in the Baptist church and then I kind of I would say shifted into the Catholicism. My high school was very strict and we had like theology courses. I was a liturgical leader. I was really ingrained and, but at the same time I still didn't know Jesus. Kind of reminds me of that lady that shamed me about having tattoos and she was like, Jesus wouldn't want you to have tattoos. I was like in that dualistic, archetypal, kind of surface level, very low, dense level of consciousness. When I would think of Jesus, I would think of just, it was something that was, I would say, conditioned into me as a thought form. I actually came into a deep knowing within my heart of who this consciousness, it's really a consciousness, Christ consciousness is something that we embody. And I learned that Jesus Christ was something huge for me. And it wasn't until I suffered, though. I get it. I get why people just like don't get it because they haven't walked that path of suffering that makes you completely surrender and just ask God for any answer at all, right? I was at that point where I needed answers or else I was going to have to leave the planet. I unfortunately entered into a karmic trauma bond with a soulmate, and that'll do it. When you're just attached to love. Anyway, I was in Oregon at the time, and this man calls me up, and he's like, "Meet me in Utah." I'm like, "I'm there." And if you know, Oregon and Utah are not close. That's how trauma bonded I was. I was so weak and so empty. I was trying to escape other narcissists in my life and I just didn't know how to get out. And when they call, sometimes we're so sad that we're just like we need the pain again. And I was in Utah and within like 8 hours or something. I remember going like 100 miles per hour. Anyway, worst mistake of my life meeting up with him. But the best thing in my life because it got me on track. Literally, it made me find Jesus because I met up with him and he always did this very meticulous thing where he'd try to triangulate me with someone or something or some situation and make sure I knew that I was worthless and that I wasn't valued, right? And so he sent me on this spiral. If you guys knew me like years ago, you can see my videos. I don't look like the same person. The life was being sucked out of me. So many demons around me. And so I went through this spiral. He ends up having to leave and I'm just like randomly in Utah, right? And if you've ever been on the road and you don't have like a trajectory and you don't have anyone around you and you feel abandoned, it's the scariest feeling in the entire world. I just like shut down. I don't even know how to explain to you. All I know is Arches National Park was in the area. I just am going to go there. We talked about people disappearing in national parks. This is how it happens. People are not in their minds and they go into these parks looking for God and they vanish. So anyway, I go into Arches National Park. I was so out of body and out of alignment and traumatized, almost like my body was not being occupied. So all of the spirits, like all of my ancestral lineages, I was just being funneled I felt all of my past lives. I felt like I was there. It was insane, right? So I end up calling the man that just like traumatized me, and I tried to explain to him, I'm like, dude, I'm having a past life regression in arches, and I feel like I can't get out of here. And it was the last time I ever heard his voice, basically. The ancestors hung up the phone on him. My whole life hung up the phone. Like, I was never going to talk to him again. There was no other route, there was no other destination at that point. And my higher self was like, get out of this park and go find Jesus. I leave the park and I have like a mini panic attack. And Spirit's like, well, what are you going to do? This is your crossroads. So I drove to Colorado and went to a hot springs there. And there was like a hose coming out of the source. And I remember sitting in the hot springs for over an hour with the hose on top of my crown chakra, just being lit up with basically streaming a new consciousness into my soul, Christ consciousness. Right then and there, being guarded, I was being given a new frequency, and Jesus was beginning to talk to me. That was the crossroads. That was the crossroads for me. That was a transformational time where my spirit got a permission slip to stay on earth, and I was then going to begin working in close connection with Christ and doing that work. So from there, I was still in balance. I was still like, whoa, where am I going? Where am I going to live? I knew I couldn't go back to Sedona. That's where a lot of this kind of cultivated a lot of my imbalance. And I knew I needed a new environment. And but I knew that I wasn't going to go back to that limited version, that limited version of Jesus. And the funny thing is, there was a test that was being given to me right away. Spirit was like, are you going to revert back to your old way of thinking? Or are you going to let this higher level of consciousness stream in? One of my best friends living in Boulder at the time, and she invited me to a festival. This festival had a booth where people were like inviting you to talk about Jesus. And I know in the past I'd just been like, or I just wouldn't have thought anything of it. But I was hurting, you guys. I was like, I need help. I want answers. This is where I'm at. They're talking about Jesus. I'm hearing Jesus. So anyway, I go to the booth and I sit down with this man and this woman. And they asked me about my troubles, and I'm like, yeah, I'm on the road. Like, I can't go back to my town. Like, I really want to, like, ascend. I want to shift. I'm tired of suffering. I don't want to be around narcs anymore. Like, these demons are killing me. And they're like, well, Jesus is definitely the way. And I was like, yeah. And they're like, but have you really accepted him? I was like, yeah, what do you mean? I'm here. And they're like, no. Have you really, really, really accepted him? They're like, you need to like join our church. And I was like, oh shit, you guys are those? No. And I was like, you guys, and I had a moment with these people. I was like, you guys, this is a serious situation. People are suffering. Like, I'm suffering here, and you're going to try to, I don't even know what the conversation was, but I try to explain to those people that they're out of alignment with that higher level of Christ consciousness. They didn't understand what I was talking about. I ended up leaving even more traumatized. And that's when the universe came in and was like, yes, this is what we're talking about. You gotta know that this is a new level of consciousness on the planet. Not a lot of people are tapped in yet. Not a lot of people have activated. And this is like a DNA activation type of a thing. You can't just go anywhere looking for this. that's when I knew. I was like, oh my God, I have to go into meditation. I got to go sit with myself. And, I have my own tools. I've, over the years, have had awakening after awakening. And some of my deepest tools, like I would say the Bhagavad Gita, the Eckhart Tolle's work, uh, any literature with Jesus Christ's teachings, the Buddha's teachings, the Dhammapada, a lot of it really, really showed me the way. Just lit me through a path, right? And that's what I did with Christ consciousness. I kind of just went into myself and used the tools around me to just find myself. So that was a huge transformation for me when I really got onto my path. Jesus, not the dualistic archetype, but the Christ consciousness really flooded my life and began to work in so many incredible ways. I will tell you, you guys, after I moved to New Mexico, because after Colorado, I ended up moving to New Mexico, I did like so much freaking work on my soul, but it was so healing. I finally got to grieve, I finally got to heal, and I finally got to find my way. I was no longer lost. And I owe that. I owe that to Jesus, because Jesus literally shows you the way. And I didn't have that before. I was in this darkness. And that's why I'm really here for Jesus, because that's what it is. If you're that messed up, if you're that freaking lost, if you did that much like damage to yourself, you can still find your way out. And that's like the best thing about Jesus Christ. That level of consciousness, emulating and embodying who he was, or if he wasn't, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't matter. What matters is learning how to be aligned with that level of consciousness. And that's what opens up the gateways to these insane magical portals, these infinite possibilities of our reality of life. My life was never the same. Oh my gosh, how much was I protected? How much was I guided and guarded? You know, it's just a whole new game. It's a game changer. When you start using the name Jesus Christ, it's a game changer. People don't like it. The demons don't like it. That's one of the, you want to know the best way to scatter demons? Like if you have like a bad dream or have like darkness around you, just say Jesus Christ and mean it through your heart. It's done. They're done. And that's why I'm here to like start to talk about it. I remember starting to talk about it in my old community and just getting shut down. And I'm not going to do that anymore. I want to be able to talk about it and share this love that I found in my heart. No, it's not freaking weird. It's real. Jesus Christ is real.